teens actually cast a vote. And these trends are particularly pronounced for young people like myself. Many polls show, for instance, that millennials or Generation Y or boomerangs or whatever you want to call us, we're more likely to support strong climate action and other elements of a progressive political agenda than people of older generations. And yet, in the 2011 election, fewer than 40% of people below the age of 30 actually showed up to vote. And so Elections Canada commissioned a study to figure out why this might be the case, and it concluded that, while some people might find it difficult to vote and may find it confusing, the real reason why there's such low turnout among people my age is that people like myself, well, not myself particularly, but in this age group, feel like politics does not speak to them, is not relevant to their lives, and they feel disillusioned with the entire system for some of the reasons Harry described about the Harper government's current approach. And this disengagement and disillusionment has consequences for all of us, because in the 2011 election, if 20% more young people had voted, a pollster named Nick Nanos calculated, then it's likely that Harper wouldn't have won his majority. And so these are some of the things that I was considering as I was trying to figure out what to ask Harry after his speech. And like Michelle also said, we reached out to Tidy Readers before the event and got you to submit questions. And so when I went through all of those questions, there were certain themes that kept repeating over and over, and so I've incorporated that into my own questioning. And I think the most important thing that came through is that myself and the Tidy Readers, we all know that Stephen Harper is trying to take this country backward and trying to make it more unequal. But the real question is, and I think what Harry is in a really good position to speak to is, how do we get the citizens of Canada up off their asses, in your words, and out to the ballot box, and particularly members of a younger generation? And so I think to begin answering that question, we have to go back in time about 80 or 90 years. And Harry, you've said in the past that in the 20s and 30s, your generation also felt very jaded and cynical towards politics. And can you explain why that was the case?
It was because we were actually the lost generation of the 20th century, and I can see the youth today in Canada being the lost generation of the 21st century, because they're going to be probably as old as I was before they were able to get a decent job and a decent place to live. I was 30 years old when I came to Canada, and I was 40 years old before I got a house, so I think they may be in about the same boat,
But you felt at the time that politicians weren't really representing your interests or helping you out?
The politicians in England, no. There was just no work. You couldn't find a job, and of course, England was always very conscious of your accent, I mean, and coming from Yorkshire, I didn't talk like that. I talked pretty broad, So I figured when I was 14 and had to go to work and got a job, that with my first paycheck, I would take language lessons to make me talk a little more like the Toffs. It cost me a shilling every Saturday, but boy, was it ever worth it.
And when you were trying to support your family and care for your sister who had tuberculosis, did you feel like you had any political power at all, or were you even thinking about that? Or were you just thinking about trying to survive day to day?
It was just a matter of trying to survive from day to day. For one thing, I mean, we just never had enough food. We were starving most of the time. I used to take my sister behind restaurants and go through their garbage cans to find bits of scraps of food left in there to push us along. It was so bad that children started fainting in schools, and the government magnanimously then decided that they would give us a small bottle of milk for the indigenous people, you know. So I remember so many days tramping to school with an empty belly and just visualizing that little glass of milk and breathing it in my belly.
And then, of course, World War II came along, and you went out to Europe and fought. And I'm wondering if you could tell the room what that experience was like.
It was very interesting, and I must admit I never really faced any big danger. I was a wireless operator, which meant they had to teach me the Morse code, and I had to learn about transmitters and receivers and all that sort of thing. But I did hear some very interesting conversations about West Plains and that sort of thing. It was a good life. I wound up in Belgium and Holland, and then on into Germany, Hamburg, Germany, which was just devastated. There wasn't a building standing in the town centre. In fact, it looked like Pompeii after the
Oh, the eruption?
Yes. I met my wife there. That was one of the big bonuses of the war for me. She actually she made me a human being again. Because I hated everything by that time. I'd seen so much poverty and hunger in England, and then in Germany it was the same there for the civilian population. They were starving too. And after I met my wife, Frida, I was constantly, don't tell anyone, stealing food from the Air Force to feed her and her family, you know. But I didn't feel I was doing anything wrong. And she appreciated it because she stayed with me for 52 years.
Well, I'll keep your secret. I'm sure the room will as well. Don't tweet about it.
Oh, but I'll tell you one thing, you know, we talk about mixed marriages and that sort of thing. When I asked my commanding officer if I could get married to a German girl, he said, certainly not. It's not allowed. You're not allowed to marry a foreign national. And so it was just had to hop over the fence from time to time. And it took a year before the House of Lords decided that it was okay for English people to marry German girls, you know. Isn't that ridiculous? But at least we did succeed in that aspect of it. But they made us suffer. I mean, my wife had to go through all sorts of medical exams and indignities, and I was being pushed right and left to forget the whole business, you know. And then they would say, well, don't cock this up, you know.
And so amidst all this poverty and destruction and carnage, you not only met your wife, but did you also begin to feel like members of your generation had gone through this big struggle together and fought for freedom and democracy? Did you feel more of a shared identity than before the war?
In a sense, yes. Although I don't know, I felt somehow the wars are so criminal, you know, so many people die. It's if I had my way, I'd abolish all wars, you know. But unfortunately, and it happens all the time, it's happening today too, the manufacturers of arms and weapons and articles of war are making literally billions of dollars today, and they're sending them to all these countries who, like ISIS and all this, and Iraq, to fight off those who it really is appalling that we supply weapons to kill people.
I guess what I meant is that by the time the war was done, did you feel like members of your generation, had the power to change things back at home and to make life better for ordinary people? Because you talk a lot in your writing about the 1945 election,
yes,
and how important that was.
It was. I was surprised because I met thousands of airmen who in my career, and they were all brought up in similar situations, you know. They would come from Wales or Scotland or Ireland, but they were all treated brutally, and they were all of one mind that we had to have a government that was for the people and by the people and would behave as the people told them to behave, you know. And we decided very early on that we would not accept a government in power anymore who didn't promise to give us, at least to begin with, the National Health Service and also new homes as quickly as possible. We understood, of course, that so many houses had been bombed out that they would have the first choice of new buildings. But after that, we implored them that they then turn around and make it possible for ordinary people to have a livable place to live.
And you've described your vote in the first major election after the war as the most important vote of your life. And I'm wondering if you can explain why you felt that was so important.
It was because it was the first election that I had ever voted in. I don't ever remember being asked to vote in an election. I don't think they give a damn whether I voted or I didn't, you know. But when Clement Attlee, the Labour Minister, promised that the first step would be the National Health Service. We figured that would be a hell of a good start to get things rolling in the right direction. That was in 45. Utley was, he won the election with a resounding vote. And he went to work so quickly that from 45, by 48, the National Health Service was in force. And people had this free service for illness or whatever ailed them. It was just a miracle. And sometimes I wonder, what's going wrong today? It seems to take forever to build something. And he builds a National Health Service in a matter of just over 3.5 years. It's uncanny to me.
So after all that you had been through as a child and seeing this society where only the wealthy could afford health care, and then all of a sudden within a matter of years there's this service that's available to everyone, what were you feeling about that at the time?
The thing that struck me was in 1948, my time was up with the Air Force, and I went back to Halifax in Yorkshire, and I contracted bronchitis, and I didn't have any money. They don't pay you very much to join the Air Force and get yourself killed, you know. It's, I went to the hospital, and I was so surprised when I saw a doctor in no time at all, and he gave me antibiotics and told me to see him again in a week. And I walked out of there like a rich man. I felt like a somebody, you know. But no, it's necessary. There are certain areas in a person's life where everyone, regardless of their wealth or standing in society, deserve at least to be treated as we expect to be treated ourselves. There should be no difference between the needs of human beings as far as healthcare is concerned.
And so there's a pretty big divide between what you're describing and what you were talking about in terms of where our society is at now, especially under politicians like Stephen Harper. And so in your mind, when did things start becoming more unequal again? When did history start almost repeating itself?
You know, I think they called us the greatest generation because we seem to achieve so much. And I'd like to think that the youth of Canada and the West can stand up and fight for their rights. And I would say they have the opportunity to be the greatest generation of this century. I think there is a great need for the young people to be given hope. They've lost hope. That isn't the trouble. And they just figure that there's nothing I can do about it. I've tried it and nothing changes, so what the hell, I just float along in this miserable existence, you know. Now, this is going to be one of my main features in my tour through Britain. I want to hit as many young people, universities or schools, high schools, to get them to listen to me and maybe energize them to realize that if they all get up en masse and go out there, register to vote, and on voting day, go out there and swamp the ballot boxes with their votes, they will change this society to what they would like rather than the status quo. Nothing is cheap, nothing is easy. We have to work for everything we do. I'm sure everyone in this room knows we don't get anything for no effort. I didn't get to 92 with no effort either. You know? I'm sure as I worked my ass off. But no, I really am concerned about the young people, because I would hate to think that they would have to face the type of life that I faced and my generation faced. And we couldn't do anything about it because we really didn't have any voice until the 1945 election. And then it's strange because Churchill was a great leader for the war. He pulled us through because of his bulldog attitude. But after the war, we all said, conservative? Ooh, no, thank you. And that's what I hope to have the young people here say. No more Tories for me.
So I know you've had a bit of contact with the comedian Russell Brand, and he's been telling young people to throw their voice away, to not vote. And I'm wondering what you think of his opinion on that.
Well, I can't say that I dislike Russell Brand. He is a humorist, and the young people like him, his type of jokes. I guess it makes them laugh, and laughter is something that we lack in the world, you know. So let him stay with that. But he's a millionaire already. And why would he want to get into the political arena? I sure as hell wouldn't. If I had $1 million, that is. But no, but he's a good speaker and he knows what he's talking about. But to tell people not to vote, I think that's the height of
I do think, though, that Brand is tapping into a sense that a lot of people my own age have, which is that there's no kind of story or struggle that unifies us, and so in the absence of that struggle, you know, why bother? Why will my own part make a difference? And in your experience, you know, you met all these people through the war and afterwards. You've been through, you know, such awful experiences that you demanded better. And I'm wondering if you think there's anything comparable in this age, and any big idea or struggle that might get young people more interested in politics.
Other than my presence in my spoken words and my insistence as much as I can in trying to induce them to realize that they can change things. They've just lost hope. Maybe they voted 2 or 3 times, and slowly in those 2 or 3 elections, their living standards have gone down rather than up. So they said, to hell with it, But I don't think that the young people, I feel, will turn in the direction of any person or group who is going to lighten their life with conversation or beer. I mean, it gives them an outlet. They can express among themselves what they think, but they don't express it openly to the world at large, So you have to mingle with them, and I'm limited capacity for beer. So I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to go in there and just sit with a shandy for an hour and a half. But if I have to do it, I will.
You said in your speech that austerity and inequality and perverted ideology helped cause things like World War II and the Cold War that had, huge global consequences. And in a sense, those same things, or you could just refer to it as unrestrained capitalism, is causing the climate to warm, and the effects of that, could be just as significant as a world war, or more significant, because it could be the end of our civilization. Do you see any parallels there, or do you think that's something that's, for people my age, that's really worth fighting for?
I think I don't have any deep, gloomy thoughts that the end of the world is nigh. I think it's incredible what human beings can achieve when they put their minds to it, and quite often it has to come right to a crisis, and then they will grab it by the neck and shake it until it's gone. But they need to. Something has to happen to make them do something that's purposeful. They're not going to go along with some politician who says, climate change is definitely here. We all know that. But there are so many other things in the countries that need to be fixed. Once we fix the austerity and people's livelihoods, then we can turn our direction to other more serious problems in the world, like climate change. And but we have to find a starting point and work from there. But the starting point, first of all, has to be human beings and getting them on the right footing to feel part of Canada or part of England, rather than just they feel like no one cares about them. They're there, but if they fell down in the street, you'd step over them, you know. So no, it's not an easy task. It's not easy to solve, but the solving can be done, and I am determined this time that, you see, for one thing that galls me are these lobbyists, these leeches that lurk around the government buildings, whispering in the ears of politicians, you know, that if you get the government to buy a little section of that NHS system, we'll reward you fully, you know. But, and this is happening, believe it or not. In England, the National Health Service there is being bought out bit by bit by privatization. Privatization is the big thing today, you know. In Britain, believe it or not, you have to pay. Water's been privatized in Britain. If you want a glass of water, you have to have paid your bill or you don't get any. We don't realize how much of our country is being sold off, you know, until we come face to face with it.
So I just have one final question for you, and I'm not sure how closely you were following what happened in Alberta this spring, but you had a government that had been around for over 4 decades, and it was in a crisis of plummeting oil prices. It was telling regular people to tighten their belts while basically giving free rein to corporations. And the people of Alberta completely rejected that idea and destroyed this political dynasty. Do you think there's a chance that, you know, Canadians could achieve the same thing in October? By defeating Harper, I mean, is there anger and a will to change in your opinion?
I think there is. And it's something that we all have to do our part, actually, and make sure in our conversations with people that if you stick with Harper, you will go nowhere, because Harper seems to be more concerned with the possibility that we may be invaded by some rebellious native outfit, because they want to move in here. Maybe we should send Harper over to ISIS. Let's see how he feels about that.
All right, well, unless you want to add anything, but that's also a nice way to leave on.
Thank you so much. I hope that all of you will join us at the reception afterwards. We'll see how long Harry can last with a beer. They may even have the makings for a shandy. I don't know. We'll see. Jeff is going to be starting to write his book when he's back from a well-deserved holiday in the summer. And he will be doing some writing for the Taillis from Paris, the climate talk. So really looking forward to that. Just want to thank Harry again and Jeff for this wonderful evening, and I hope that we'll continue the conversation in the reception. And also some of the questions that might not have made it into this dialogue will make it into a future interview with Harry too. So if you submitted a question and it didn't get into tonight, it may get into a future piece with Harry then. So thank you very much. And